So hey guys, it's Laura here. Now, I recently did a video going over all the Aussie things that came up in season 1 of Heartbreak High. And as we all know, season 2 has come out on Netflix and it's gone absolutely viral. But I know there's a lot of Aussie things that come up in the show that go over the Americans' heads. So what I've done is a breakdown of all the Aussie things that come up in Heartbreak High. But don't worry, I won't be giving away any spoilers. This season we start with a flash forward and it opens up with a scene of a sign with a year 11 formal with the school emblem being the bin chicken on fire. Now, formal, okay, so we all know every school around the world, I'm pretty sure, do like a disco or a school dance, whatever, for things in primary school, but obviously as you get older, we want something a little bit more adult. And most high schools here in Australia, what we do is, you know, it still kind of starts off with a little bit of disco for like, you know, year 7s and year 8s, and then it kind of moves forward to like a semi-formal and then a formal, and then it's not until you get to year 12, which is where you have your school ball. Now, a lot of people in America, they call them the prom, and it's basically the same thing. It really is basically the same thing. We just have a different name for it. So generally, these students are in year 11, which is what they call the formal, and then it's not until you get until year 12, and then you get the ball, which is like your full shebang, and it's very similar to a reception at a wedding. And generally what that is just a reward to students for completing their 12 years of schooling. This one was mentioned really quickly, but Amory says if you do 10 Weet-Bix.
Or you can eat 10 Weet-Bix in one sitting.
Weet-Bix is actually a really classic Australian breakfast cereal, and what it is just bricks of whole grain wheat. So Weet-Bix has actually been around in Australia since the 1920s, but it became a lot more viral due to media over the last couple of years, generally due to an advertising campaign that they've done in collaboration with many different Australian sports stars and sports teams with the slogan, "How many do you do?" And generally what that is a little bit of a meme, and the whole thing is the more Weet-Bix that you can eat for breakfast, the tougher you must be.
10. 7. 6. 27.
Weet-Bix, high in energy yet low in sugar.
Australians all over have also used Weet-Bix to help them tell how to read a compass by using the term "never eat soggy Weet-Bix."
Okay, so this season we're actually introduced to a new character, Rowan, and Woodsy, the school principal, points out nicely that he's just moved here from Dubbo. Now, what's Dubbo? Dubbo is actually a rural town which is also known as a city. It's actually one of the fastest growing cities here in Australia. Now, this particular rural town or city, it's kind of really hard to kind of pick which side you want to say, because generally we say towns when it's a rural area. They are known for farming and, you know, sheep and wheat and all the rest of it, which is also why Spider shouts out,
Hey, Farmer wants a wife!
"Farmer wants a wife." And what that is actually another Australian TV show, Farmer Wants a Wife, and it's a reality dating show where, you guessed it, farmers are looking for a wife. Best and Less is also mentioned here as well.
Sorry, Best and Less. Sorry.
And Best and Less is actually just another Australian clothing store which is known for their discount clothing. Another new character that we're introduced to this season is Timothy Voss, who is the new sport teacher. And here we are with him reciting the lines to What About Me?
There is a little boy waiting at the counter of the corner shop. Now, he has been waiting down there, waiting half of the day, and they never ever see him from the top.
Now, a lot of people probably think, what the hell is this guy on about? And he's actually singing the famous lines to the song What About Me? Blech. Did I just sound like Catholic Kim? Anyway, so he is reciting the lines to the song What About Me by Shannon Noll. Now, who's Shannon Noll? Shannon Noll is actually an Australian singer, songwriter, and he actually got famous in the first season of Australian Idol as the second place getter. And his most famous song that everyone knows him of is the song What About Me. So this song is actually a cover to another band called Moving Pictures, to which Woodsy actually does make a reference to a little bit later on in the episode as well.
This is so messed up.
A bin chicken. Now I did mention this one back in my other video that I went over everything in season 1, but just to kind of recap here, the bin chicken is just an ibis. It's actually become quite an iconic bird here in Australia. We do like to make fun of it because the bird has become completely lazy and has learned to get their food from rubbish instead. They've actually learned how to open up rubbish bins and everything, which is why we call them bin chickens.
Come to the gather tonight.
Gathering. So it's not really an Aussie thing here, but here we find out what Harper's middle name is, and turns out she has one of the most common middle names in probably the whole world, and that is Louise. Let me know, do you know someone with a middle name Louise?
Enjoy the party, Cheezel Breath.
Okay, Cheezels. It's another Australian snack food. It's actually made of puff rice and wheat, and they are like little rings, kind of similar to burger rings, but different all together as well. You kind of need to place each ring on your finger and it must be eaten that way. There's no other way to eat them.
Swoop by Swoopy Boy Magpie.
Swoopy Boy Magpie. So magpies are an Australian native bird and they're actually pretty iconic. They're mostly known for their call, but they're also extremely territorial when it comes to nesting season, and they are known to swoop, and their intention is actually to try and peck your eyes out. Now there's actually so many videos that have gone viral of people in different areas around Australia being swooped by magpies. There's definitely a few people that I think personally do it on purpose, but the video that was shown in this clip of the little boy on the scooter rolling down the hill screaming from the magpie, that actually went viral, and I do think it was a perfect clip for them to put in this show.
Never done a day's hard yakka.
Hard yakka. Work.
I say no walkers, but
No walkers. No worries.
May all the bindies find their way into your fate.
Bindies. Okay, so I'm not talking about Bindi Irwin here. I'm actually talking about those really annoying prickles that get stuck in your feet. So bindies obviously are just a little thing that grows in weeds on the lawn, and they are one of the most annoying things here in Australia. We all know how nice it is to walk barefoot on long, fluffy grass, but your day is completely ruined when you get a bindi stuck in the bottom of your foot. All of that was just episode 1. And yeah, I do think I'm gonna have to split this one up into a few different episodes this season. But let's get on to season 2.
should put a prawn in my sleeping bag in year 9 camp.
Prawn. Okay, so everyone knows the famous line, put another shrimp on the barbie, and it's said by Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber and Sean William Scott in The Dukes of Hazzard. But the line actually came from Paul Hogan, and that's actually not how he said it.
And there's plenty of shrimps on the bar.
He was actually filming an Australian tourism advert, and the advert here was targeted at people from the UK and people from the US. I also think the video was filmed back in the 80s as well, but obviously things have kind of gone from there. But here in Australia, we don't actually call them shrimp at all. We say prawn. Most people don't eat prawns after they've been cooked on the barbie. It's actually most commonly eaten around Christmas time, and they're eaten cold. The Matildas. Okay, so you might have missed this one because it just came up really like quickly in an argument over, you know, men's and women's sports.
It's not my fault nobody watches women's sport. Low rating.
That's not true.
Boys are sportier, right?
But the Matildas is actually an Australian football team who actually play soccer. So here in Australia, we have 2 big soccer teams. We have the Socceroos, which is the men's team, and we have the Matildas, which is the women's team. Now there is a big thing, and I think this comes up in every sport, maybe except for like gymnastics or something, but generally men's sports are viewed a lot more than what female sports are. And obviously things like football or soccer, it's a big thing as well. And the Matildas over the last couple of years have actually done extremely well, and they've actually been bringing in the same, if not more, viewers than what the men's team has, and which is why the little argument came up. So here's a little fun fact for you. So Matilda, it's not actually from that movie that came out back in the day. So the team Matildas actually is named after a famous Australian folk song called Waltzing Matilda, who was famously sung by Banjo Patterson. And this fella is such an iconic piece to Australia, he's even featured on the Australian $10 note. Footy, or Aussie rules. Okay, so the sport that you're watching these people play right now is what we call AFL, or Australian Football League, Australian Football, whatever you want to call it. But generally here in Australia, we just say footy. This one is similar in a way, but completely different from other football games. So the whole point of the game is to kick or hand pass the oval shaped ball to your goals. This game is actually played a lot rougher than what gridiron or American football is. There is no padding and there is full tackling, and you can even use your opponent as a pole to climb up and reach the ball. And that, we call it a mark. And the whole point of the game is to get it back towards your goals and get 6 points.
You know, I'm all about defending mob, but you're making it really fucking hard right now.
Guess not all skin folk are kinfolk.
So you might hear the word mob come up here, and this is when Missy and Zoe are having a little bit of a tiff. Now Missy is kind of mentioning because of Zoe's behavior, it's a hard time to kind of stick up to her mob, and what she's actually referring to is the Aboriginal community as a whole. Now I did mention kind of this one before in my previous videos, but here in Australia there is still a big divide between the white people and Aboriginal people, and yes, it's 100% because white people did take their land, and generally there is still a stereotype that kind of says that Aboriginal people, you know, are no-gooders, I suppose you could say. And obviously we know not all of them, that it's not the case with everyone, because you have bad eggs in both white and dark people. Aboriginal people as a whole would like to stick up for their own people, and which is why they call themselves the mob. I white explained that one. If anyone knows a better way to explain that one, just put it in the comments below. What is the charge?
Eating a meal. A succulent Chinese meal.
Okay, so this one is not just any old argument that's going on between Quinny and Sasha. The lines here are extremely iconic and Australian, and it comes from what we call Mr. Democracy Manifest.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
So what actually happened, and I think this was back in 1991, a fella called Jack Carlson, he was actually being arrested. Now this fella, he has been charged on multiple things in the past, and he's actually known as a serial escapee when it comes to prison as well. But this particular time, as he was being arrested, he was being filmed by a Channel 7 news crew, and I have heard that he has talked it up for the cameras and acted a little bit more crazy, but his arrest went completely viral due to the words that were coming out of his mouth. So some of the things that he yelled out was, "This is Democracy Manifest," and then he also shouted out, "Get your hands off my penis."
Have a look at the headlock here. See that chap over there? Get your hand off my penis!
And then the famous line of the show, "What is the charge?"
What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Democracy Manifest.
And then as he has been placed into the police car itself, he also shouts out to one of the police officers, "I see you know your judo."
Oh, that's a nice headlock, sir. Oh, yes. I see that you know your judo well.
So this particular time, he was actually being arrested for credit card fraud, to which turns out it was actually a bit of a mistaken identity, and he got off on these charges, but I think he was still done for other things, being like a serial escapee. There are theories to say that he was acting out this way because he was hoping to be put into a mental asylum, because it would be easier to escape a mental asylum than being put into a full-blown prison. I don't really know how true that is, but there's theories out there. I know that he was interviewed recently, so Mr. Democracy Manifest, which is what we call him, was interviewed, because I think it's been like 40 years now since that happened, and he was questioned, did the police officer ever touch his penis? And the answer was no.
And you, sir, are you waiting to receive my limp penis? How dare get your hands off me. Ta-ta and farewell.
Okay, this isn't fully Australian, but this is just more of a question. Now here we are introduced to Rowan in his workplace. Now it did actually come up before that he works for like a hardware store, but here we're actually showing the inside. Is it Bunnings? Let me know, was this filmed in Bunnings or is this just another hardware store?
What are you doing here?
Oh, I wanted some wood.
And the reason why I'm asking is just, it's the green aprons. Now generally people that work at Bunnings here in Australia, now Bunnings is probably the largest and most iconic hardware store that we have. They're known for wearing the red shirts and the green aprons. Now obviously he's not wearing a red shirt, he's wearing like a khaki shirt with the green. But let me know, is this supposed to be a bit of a piss take on Bunnings? Okay, so we're up to number 20 now, and we have Woodsy teaching Harper how to drive.
Oh, okay, yeah, doing good, doing great.
Now I did mention the whole L plate and P plate thing in the previous video that I made about Heartbreak High, but we have the L plate again. And just to kind of do a bit of a recap on you, here in Australia you can get your learner's plates, or what we call the L plates, when you're 16 years old, and you have a whole year to learn how to drive, because you can't get your driver's license until you pass the test until you are 17, and that is when you're granted your P plates, which is just there to tell people you're inexperienced or probably a hoon.
I mean, there are other options, TAFE certificates, online.
So the next one courses that kind of comes up, which is pretty Australian, and it is the word TAFE. So we have Woodsy kind of telling Cash that maybe he should try going to TAFE. What's TAFE? It's just another form of tertiary education. I think in places in America, you guys call it community college. Funny enough, the high school I went to was called community college, but otherwise it is called a trade school, and this is where you go to learn your trade. Now I know in some places it is kind of talked down upon if you end up at a trade school or community college, but it's not the case here in Australia, because yes, there are certain jobs that you need a university degree. I mean, you're not going to expect your surgeon to learn the whole human anatomy in like a year's TAFE course, but there are plenty of jobs, high paying jobs, that only require a TAFE course degree. Here in Australia, one of the highest paying jobs is someone who works in the mining sector, and generally those people have picked up trade certificates through their apprenticeships, and where they go to study is at TAFE. I went to TAFE, so even I have a trade certificate. I don't know where it is though. It's in a box somewhere. Okay, so now we have Sasha and Missy kind of flogging off the royal family here, and I know there are a lot of people that they absolutely idolize the royal family. They love the late Queen, they love Princess Kate or Catherine, but in all seriousness, at the end of the day, the royal family is a group of communists, and I'm sure there are plenty of people around the world, like people from Asian communities or the Aboriginal community, which is where these characters come from, and yeah, I really don't think that they like the royal family as much as what many other people do. I actually think this is a really good discussion to have down in the comments, what you think of the royal family. Do you think it should still be around, or do you think it should have the boot? Now I did mention a few times here in the other video as well of my breakdown of Heartbreak High, that Heartbreak High is actually a reboot or a remake, whatever you want to call it, of the OG series of Heartbreak High that came out back in the 90s. And here we have in like is it called the Women's Association or something, the character Amory, and she's having a deeper meaningful with a lady called Anita, and Anita was actually a huge character in the OG series as well.
I'm an ex-Harley girl and I don't want to know about the broken soap dispensers.
And you might even hear her as she's walking away at the end of this scene, and she mentions Drazik. And Drazik was actually one of the bad boys in the OG series. He was known for wearing his like dealer sunglasses and riding around on a skateboard and rollerblades. But yes, these were some of the OG characters. And I actually do wonder how many people picked that one up. Okay, so this next clip here has gone absolutely viral, and it's Cash while he's on pingers. So obviously you might have noticed the word rage pops up in the bottom corner of this video here. And what is Rage? Rage is just an Australian music video show that comes on Australian TV and is still aired to this day. It's always been one of those huge things that get aired early in the mornings, and I don't know about you, but in my household it was like Sunday morning. Mum would say we had to do the housework, or how we got ourselves pumped up is by having Rage played in the background. And then obviously another big clip which I know has gone absolutely viral all over TikTok, and it's Cash muzzing. But you may think, who the hell is this old man that he's muzzing next to? And it's actually none other than Danny Lim. Now, to be honest with you, I've never met Danny Lim. I've never been to Sydney, but this is actually where Danny Lim is from. And Danny Lim has actually popped up on the news plenty of times. And he actually used to be a politician, but he's actually become now more of a activist as of late. His thing is to out what our government is doing wrong. Now, Danny Lim has actually come up quite a few times because he has had his spout of you know, getting on the wrong side of the law as well. He had a big famous case quite a few years back where I think he had a sign and that it read that Tony Abbott was a cunt. Who's Tony Abbott? Tony Abbott was a Prime Minister of Australia. He's not there anymore. We have someone else now. It seems to change like every couple of years. We can't even keep up with who they are now. Interestingly enough, the charges were actually dropped because here in Australia, the word cunt or calling someone cunt isn't always a bad term, because though the word cunt doesn't necessarily also mean something bad, it can also mean something good as well. I think also there was a huge thing where a lot of people put in a GoFundMe to help raise money for Danny Lim so that way he could get him through court, but obviously at the end of the day the charges were dropped. He has later been arrested a few times for protesting against different things, and then he has also had a spout of unfortunately being attacked by people of the public who don't agree for what he is protesting for, and unfortunately he has been hospitalized a few times. He has been assaulted even by police officers, and multiple times charges have been dropped because at the end of the day he hasn't really done anything wrong. He comes across as a pretty funny fella. He's come up in different shows before. He's been in different movies, TV episodes, music videos, and I think now because of the current one obviously being Heartbreak High, a lot more people are going to know about him. I've even seen the guy pop up a lot more on TikTok at the moment, and yeah, in my opinion, leave him alone, mate. The guy's like 80. He's pretty cool. Leave him alone. Let him do his thing. Fucking cool.
Yeah, like sometimes I have sex dreams about Dorothy the dinosaur.
So I know the whole point about sluts is to have a safe place for people to talk about their sexual experience or sexual desires, but Sasha, Dorothy the dinosaur? Okay, so for people that don't know, Dorothy the dinosaur, technically a musician, is actually a character on the famous Australian children's TV show called The Wiggles. Dorothy the dinosaur, however, is actually called a rososaur, so it's actually a made-up dinosaur who feeds off of roses. Now, The Wiggles here in Australia is completely iconic, and they play a huge variety of different music, obviously targeted towards children, but you may notice of late that there's a lot of things that come up in The Wiggles that are targeted towards my age group or mums and dads now, because they have been around since I was a child, and I think what they have done is they have learnt to grow alongside with their audience. But because they are still a children's thing, it is actually really cute to see the young little kids now singing, you know, the toot toot chugga chugga red big red car. brush your teeth with orange juice and all the rest of it. But yeah, Dorothy the dinosaur is still extremely iconic. So yeah, it really confuses me why one would have a sexual desire to Dorothy the dinosaur. One of the last things that come up in episode 3 is all the feelings that the boys had written. So there is a scene there where the boys put their feelings on a note and then buried them in the ground. Someone has pulled them all up and put them on display. But one of the things that you may notice, or you might not have noticed, right in the middle there is one that reads that they are sexually attracted to Bluey's mum. Now, Bluey, everyone knows who Bluey is, I'm pretty sure, and if you don't know who Bluey is, you've been living under a rock. And it is an Australian cartoon series that has gone viral, and I know it is shown on all parts of the world. I have heard as of late that it has one of the longest run times of all shows that come up on the Disney Channel. So it actually surprised me because I'm pretty sure those episodes only go for 7 minutes long. So it goes to show you how many kids love watching Bluey. But Bluey, what the hell is a Bluey? Obviously it's a dog, if you haven't picked that one up already, but a Bluey is an Australian dog. We call them Blueys as a bit of a nickname here, but it's a blue heeler. Now, what is a blue heeler? A blue heeler is actually an Australian cattle dog. So technically they were a mutt, but they have been bred for cattle herding. And a blue heeler is actually a cross between a Highland collie and a dingo. And they are now known as like a, you know, what do you call it? Like a pure breed dog, because it's been so long. They're highly intelligent, highly energetic, and obviously highly obedient dogs as well. They are, like I said, have been bred as cattle herding dogs, so they will run and run and run, but they're also known to nip the heels of children, because it is part of their breed to nip at cattle to, like, obviously push them into the next paddock. So there you go. So that was another Aussie thing that came up here in Heartbreak High. Now, my goodness, I've only done 3 episodes and I've already gone over, I think it was 27 different things that are complete Aussie culture that has come up in 3 episodes alone. And I think I'm gonna have to break the next ones down into another video because I still need to edit all this. Okay, so keep posted, make sure you're subbed, and I'll definitely do a breakdown of the next few episodes next week to come. I hope you come, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.